I'm Soumya Bhamidipati, a journalist at Health Central. We're here at tonight's Chalk Talk on the End of Life Choice Bill. With me is ACT Party Leader David Seymour. David, thank you so much for being here.
Hey Soumya, thanks for having me.
No problem. So David, you drafted and entered this bill into the ballot. Why is this issue important to you?
Look, it's important to me because it's important to a lot of people. I don't think the status quo for people at the end of their life who are suffering and can't be helped by palliative care, and there are some, is acceptable. I think that the reason so many New Zealanders support legislation like this is because they have seen what it's like to die badly in New Zealand. And secondly, I think it's possible to create a law that is safe for those who want nothing to do with it, and yet gives choice to those who do. And that's just not my view. I mean, the Crown Law and the Attorney General have gone through my bill, measured it against the Bill of Rights Act, and they said, yes, this bill has adequate safeguards. This bill protects people's choices and protects people's freedoms and safeties very well. So that's why I think this bill should become a law.
Is there anything that has particularly influenced you on your perspective when it comes to this issue?
The only thing that's really influenced me is looking at evidence from overseas. To give you a classic example, when I started going down this path and trying to learn about it, I read that 1.8% of people in Belgium were euthanized without their consent. And I thought, whoa, that's terrible, you can't have that. And I found the medical journal article that told me about that. Turned out before they legalized it was 3.2%. They actually controlled the situation by legislating. Now, people might ask, well, how on earth was it 3.2? Then you come to New Zealand, and according to surveys of doctors, 4.5% of people who die have their life ended prematurely and deliberately by a doctor. So we've got to look at the evidence here. If you take the initial thing, 1.8% of people dying involuntarily euthanized in Belgium, you think, well, Belgium's legalized. Maybe that's what happens when you legalise. If you look at the real evidence, we've got a certain amount going on already, and it's better to put it in a regulated and controlled environment. So that's just one example of how looking at the evidence changed my view about this issue.
Can you talk me through some of the practical implications of this bill, such as who it would affect and who would be required to undertake the tasks?
Well, nobody is required to do anything under this bill they don't want to. So that's number one. If you're a doctor and you want nothing to do with this, you just say, I'm a conscientious objector, you're out. So there's no obligation on any particular doctor. The next thing is, you have to be a person who qualifies, and there are 6 conditions. So you have to be 18, and that's in black and white. People say that somehow that'll change. Look, if you could just change the law about ages, I would have been driving at 12 and drinking at 14, but I wasn't, because that's not how the law works. Number 2, you've got to be a New Zealand citizen or permanent resident. So if people from other countries want to come here and they want to change and they want to end their lives this way, they can't. If they want to change their laws, they can, but they can't come here and do it. It's for New Zealand citizens and permanent residents. Number 3, you've got to have a terminal illness with a prognosis of 6 months as examined by 2 doctors, the second one independently selected from the first. So you have to be someone who has most probably cancer or some illness that will end your life within 6 months. Number 3, you have to be in an advanced state of irreversible decline in capability. So you have to be in an advanced state of decline. It means you're bad, and you've been getting bad for a long time, and you're continuing to get bad. So it's actually not just about your situation, it's about your direction. Number 5, you have to be the person who you have to be of sound mind, You have to be able to understand the decision that you're making. And if either of the doctors isn't sure about that, they're going to send you to a psychologist. And finally, you have to decide, not anyone else, you have to be certain that this is the right choice for you, that no other option is going to work, not anyone else's opinion. You have to say that you are enduring suffering that cannot be relieved in any other way. So those are the 6 criteria that you have to fit. It has to be your choice. You have to be sick, you have to be worse and getting worse, you've got to be over 18, you've got to be a New Zealander, you've got to be of sound mind. Then you have the choice of this bill.
What do you think the main concern of the people who would vote against this bill
Look,
is?
Look, I think there's three types of people that are worried about this bill, just in broad groups. One is people who have been given bad information, and there's lots of bad information out there, such as some people say that in the Netherlands, older people wear "don't euthanize me" wristbands. Well, that's a myth. It was made up by an American politician on the hoof. But there are people who've got all sorts, spurious things like that, and also worse information about how people can be pressured into it and there aren't enough safeguards and so on. So people that have had bad information about the bill may be concerned about it, and part of my job is to reach out to them and say, well, hey, here's how we actually intend it to work, and here's how it has worked in other countries with similar laws. Two is there's people in the medical profession who say, well, the medical profession are not the ones asking for this, it's the patients. And they're saying, well, what will my role be? What will be my obligations? And so I understand their concern, but the answer is, look, most doctors will never be involved. They won't want anything to do with it, or they'll be in a practice or a specialty where they're not involved in end-of-life care anyway. But for those who do, it's a choice, it's not compulsory. And finally, there are people out there who have a spiritual worldview that life is a miracle created by God, given by God, and can only be taken away by God. And they think that even if they don't choose it themselves, other people having the choice of assisted dying somehow invalidates or violates their worldview. And look, I think that's a real shame. But all I ask of them is, you don't have to accept this for yourself. Can you please just exercise the kind of tolerance that makes our society great and allow others to make the choice for themselves?
Great, thank you so much, David.
Hey, no problem. Thank you.